Hey Bodhana, what time is it?
It's time for the ChessKid Youth Championships 2026.
Welcome back, everybody. It's the final day of the Olympics, but more importantly, it's the final day of the 2026 ChessKid Youth Championship under 13 division. We have four of the best kids in the world that are not even teenagers yet. And I'm Funmaster Mike, joined by Grandmaster Arturs and Ike Sons. Arturs, are you ready for the big final?
I am ready. Let's go. I mean, we were waiting for this starting with yesterday. We had such amazing pool matches, both in Group A and B. We got dramas, we got time scrambles, we got blunders, we got unexpected results. So I can't wait, Mike, what today is going to bring us.
Yeah, the top half of the format was already done yesterday. We had two double round robins of players split into six player groups each. The top two advanced from each group, which means we have four kids playing today. They're going to be two semifinals, best of four in the semifinals, and after a short break, best of six. So unlike, let's say, the SCC, the games count for way more because there are so few of them. So every game, every move is going to matter even more than any other match that you've seen before. And Arturs, let's take a look at who advanced from yesterday's round robin play.
So we have four young warriors standing, and this is the semifinals stage. Supratit Banerjee is going to take on Ethan Guo. And the other matchup is Bodhana, who yesterday scored a fantastic round with 9.5 out of 10, just blowing away pretty much any opposition. She's gonna face Ashwath Kashek, and then eventually the winners of these two semifinals, they're gonna fight for the grandiose finale and quite a nice prize money.
Yeah, basically, if you finished number one in your group yesterday, you play the number two kid from the other group and vice versa. That's how we arrived at our matchups today. And it should be noted that Ashwath, in the bottom left of your screen, he's already played chess on Sunday because he was up past midnight playing his Armageddon tiebreaker. And now he's playing again. It's already Sunday night again in Singapore, assuming he's playing from home. It's about 11:30 at night. So he is definitely burning the candle at both ends, as we say. But yeah, these are four really exciting kids. Keep in mind, our under 16 championship happens in 2 weeks, where most of the top players are grandmasters, and these players are definitely on their way. We have four titled players, 3 FMs, and the world's youngest WIM up there in the top left, Bodhana Sivanandan, who set a record yesterday with 9.5 out of 10 points. Even Yuj Erdemis wasn't able to do that when he won this same tournament 2 years ago. She's got her secret lab chair. Arturs, do you think she was buoyed by the osmosis of playing in a chair that a super grandmaster played in 2 weeks ago in London?
Yeah, I think actually this chair, Mike, gives you some special aura. Like you feel you have to start to perform a bit better. And Bodhana indeed was unstoppable force yesterday. So I'm very curious if she will be able to keep up with the pace she set yesterday. And now I think also the opposition knows what to expect from Bodhana. Obviously, she already was a big name, but everybody will be gunning for her and try to outplay her. And I suppose we're going to see.
Yeah, for those of you in chat, a couple things I want to know from you. Can Bodhana keep up the freight train? Will she lose any games today? And the second thing, are me and Arturs too old to use the word aura? Please actually don't comment on the second part. Only comment on the first part. We're very curious to know who you think is going to win. We have 2 English players, an American. We have a Singaporean. For those of you choosing us over USA Canada hockey, welcome. This is going to be more exciting. We're going to have more goals, or at least more wins. By the way, Bodhana plays all the way to checkmate in every single game. And we saw yesterday, we had one kid, Luca Protopopescu from France. He was down 2 queens in 2 different games and got 2 draws. It just goes to show that you do not know what's going to happen in this championship. All games are going to be 3+1. We're not going to do any bullet today. We don't want to give kids the wrong impression. Arturs, do you like it when your students play blitz?
Well, it's quite hard to watch. I think this time it's going to be a bit different because they are not really my students. They're essentially the future superstars. And I'm pretty sure that we are going to remember these names for a very long time, because if you look back now at the previous ChessKid editions, names like Andy Woodward, Abhimanyu Mishra, Yezer Domosh, they're obviously already very famous worldwide. And some of their very first steps happened exactly exactly here at ChessKid Championship. So remember Ethan, Supratit, Ashwath, and Bodhana, obviously, because they're going to make big waves.
Yeah, in 2025, this event was won by International Master Aaron Mendez of Canada, the youngest ever IM from Canada. He's going to play in the under 16 division coming up in 2 weeks, as is Tata Steel Challengers winner Andy Woodward, as is Fausti Oro, as is Yuj Erdemis, number 37 in the world. But forget about those kids. We have the preteens. We are off and running. As you can see, we're going to look at both games simultaneously. And as we saw yesterday, the King's Indian attack makes a strong presence in Supratit's game. And over on the right, it looks like a modern French Tarrasch.
Yeah, this is quite a popular line. I actually like this particular setup, even though I think objectively White is not getting any real advantage according to a chess engine. But all it really matters is that White gets a simpler game. And this is what Bodhana is doing. Typically, as you can see, this bishop is attacked by the black queen. I'm talking about Bodhana's game against Ashwath. And White at some point is thinking about organizing some sort of a kingside attack. As you can see, this queen slide to the king side definitely means that Bodhana is up to business.
Yeah, a lot of more open position on the right side. Over on the left side, we have a lot of pawns getting locked up. In fact, it was one of those funny positions for a second where White went for e4 and Black went for c5. And I saw this very funny video posted recently where I think it was Leboyevich who was saying that it's always better to play Black because White has to make the first pawn movement. But setting that aside, we have a very interesting pawn structure, almost reminiscent of like a closed Sicilian. Okay, I think the knight's going to move back to e3. No, it actually... He just jumps in right away. He's going to put a pawn on d5. He's going to try to make that pawn a thorn in Black's side.
Yeah, so that is indeed a very common idea in this position. Maybe we could actually go full screen a bit to this game and I could show you what is the common idea here. So knight e5, this is something I am recommending myself in brand new course, which will be released tomorrow, Red is Simplified. Sorry, I couldn't resist, Mike. I had to mention this. But the big idea is exactly this a4. And let's say Black at some point plays not king h7, and he decides to play bishop takes on d5, e takes on d5, and knight e4. Looks very natural. I'm pretty positive I have like a very, very similar line to this one. Here, White's idea is to play c3, knight f5, and play f4. And after e takes on f4, bishop takes on f4, there's a very significant pressure on the pawn on d6. The pawn on d5 is actually giving White the necessary space advantage. And that's why, Mike, Black says, I'm not going to take on d5 and instead go for the f5 push. Ethan knows what he's doing.
That is great analysis. By the way, the analysis is free, but if you want a little bit more insightful analysis by Grandmaster Arturs Nixons, there's his ready course. He's going to be galloping, hopefully, into your laptop. So go pick that up. It starts tomorrow. As you know, the first 10 days of all Chess Bowl courses are usually when the big discounts happen. So that's all. Show Arturs some love and go grab that tomorrow. Go to chessbowl.com and I'm sure you'll find his course. Excellent job. Okay, so let's go back to the 2-game setup. And we'll take a look at the right side. We can leave it up here to look at both boards at the same time. But if I'm looking at the right side of the screen, what I see is a kind of position where as the queen can join the light squared bishop on the b1, h7 diagonal, it's going to cause Black to start pushing some pawns and creating some weaknesses. So a little bit of a scary position for Black here. I think that Bodhana has exactly what she wants. Even though the eval bar says equal, those bishops are scary. I don't see Black aiming at a lot of white targets in this position.
I completely agree. So it feels that White definitely has some pressure here. So I maybe suggest to go full screen so that I can highlight a bit some arrows. What are White's typical ideas? Just as Ashwath played rook d2, rook e2 here, White's idea is to push aggressively the pawns at a king side. At least that's what I'm thinking, Mike. Bodhana has the bishop on c2 and the bishop on e5. And if I was playing from the White's perspective, I would be trying to make good of this strong bishop on c2 and perhaps build a battery. So how about I push those kingside pawns, g4, h4, g5, get rid of the black knight that shelters the black king, and then use the queen, the bishop, and also obviously the other bishop on e5, somehow try to get to the black king. But probably, Mike, it's not really that simple.
Maybe not so simple. The eval bar is starting to creep up a little bit, though. Funnily enough, on ChessKid, our video on the battering ram, which we have right here, is done by Grandmaster Simon Williams, and he calls it Secrets of the Battering Ram. If I can channel my inner Simon, my inner Englishman, and we do have an English woman playing white, so that kind of makes sense. By the way, both of these players list math or maths as their favorite subject, and there's a little bit of geometry going into play here. Because the queen she worked her way up to d3. She's worked her way over to g3. Now bishop takes h6 as the threat. This is a position where the queen's going to dance all over, forcing various pawn movements, and then she's going to invade the weaknesses that are created. I'm loving Bodhana's position.
Let's go full screen immediately to this game because I feel I have to explain a couple of decisions played by both players. Here, everything started with a genius move by Bodhana, this queen e3. I'm just going to go very quickly to this moment where Ashwath made a small inaccuracy attacking the knight, knight e7, the bishop on e5, queen e3, immediately spotted by Bodhana. The point is, knight x on e5 is going to be a simple checkmate in 2. So this was missed by black, and he had to respond with knight f8. Now the queen g3 f6, bishop c5. Here, white appears to be pressing. Couple of things already happened during this time, but the bottom line is Bodhana just won extra pawn, and I think, Mike, her a pawn is going to roll forward very quickly.
Yeah, she took on h6, and then black liquidated by bishop takes f2, getting the queens off the board. But as you said, an extra pawn. More important than the extra pawn, though, it's 3 against 1. So much easier to get the advantage going. Now, black has, I think, kind of improved the position by making her extra pawn a double rook pawn. However, rook d1, the blue arrow, we know what that means. That is the voice of Stockfish saying it's the best move, and Bodhana found it. The rook is going to assist the pawn. The bishop guards the promotion square. It looks very tough. The rook needs to go to a5, and now is she going to play rook d6, or is she going to play something else? Let's find out, because she has rook d8, rook a8 as well.
Very, very strong maneuver here by Bodhana. Bishop e2 is played, and I don't think that black is going to be immediately losing because white still needs to find a way to make a progress. In the meantime, the other game obviously is also proceeding, and then I can see that Supratit with a white color is in trouble against Ethan Guo. So action is unfolding very quickly. And wait a second, here Guo has an extra piece.
Yeah, extra piece. By the way, Bodhana, the fastest player of the field, would be my guess. She's the only person not in extreme time pressure. Black toggled moves there, but the extra piece is looking great for the American. Ethan Guo is taking charge in his game against Supratit, whereas equality has been reached by our late night friend Ashwath nearing midnight in Singapore, and his position's gotten a lot better because he's activated his king, a very important part of endgame technique. And how does she get her pawn to a8? I really don't know. Please, going to be really tough.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Mike. I mean, I saw obviously the valuation bar, and Danger was literally screaming that this is winning for white, but I was not really so sure if in a blitz game it's going to be so obvious. And now the players are getting in a time scramble. Let's go full screen and follow the only remaining game here. And Bodhana is just capturing all of black's pawns at the king side, and I suppose she wants to run to help the a pawn to advance. I'm talking about something like king d7, king c8, king b8, and make it happen. Engine says it's about balanced.
Yeah, and if the knight has to sacrifice for the pawn, a reminder to our viewers, many of you know this, bishop and rook versus rook is technically a draw. However, we missed something there. The knight has gone back. I was going to say, if we have bishop and rook versus rook, she's going to play for 50 moves and try to win that. It's very tough to defend, but the king has gotten involved in the action. We just have to deflect the knight away.
Wow.
She takes the rook, and she's going to win this one.
Wow, this was a really amazing sequence. I feel I have to go back very quickly here before the next game starts, because after this, where was this mistake? Let me go here. Yeah, here after king d7, apparently the position was still drawn. Black had to move with the rook here. Rook a1, rook a2, rook a3. I think any move apparently draws, but knight b6 is such a logical move in a time scramble, and yet, Mike, it's a mistake because Bodhana found all the correct moves. Again, this sequence, king d6, bishop here. Again, if you take on a7, there's a very important intermezzo check on c6, and only then white collects the rook. A very, very precise play by Bodhana in the time scramble.
Excellent. Yeah, we are 10 minutes in. We've already seen as many wins as the entire 60 minutes of USA-Canada hockey. They're going to overtime. Will we go to overtime? I'm not sure. But right now, two players are trying to get equal here Ethan won the first game. Bodhana won the first game. We had 1 win for white, 1 win for black. Supratit and Ashwath both need to get back to equal. Remember, it's only a best of 4 semifinals. We want every move, every game to matter, and in fact, they do. So we just looked at Bodhana a little bit. We've yet to catch up to the Ethan Supratit game. Arturs, what do you see on the left side of your screen?
Yeah, I really like what Ethan is doing with the white color because he has exposed black king, and positionally, if I'm seeing it right, black has an extra pawn, right? Because that's what I'm seeing. 1 pawn more for black, but white is simply more active. And that's what I really like about his position, is that he's the one who is attacking at the king side. And g4 is a very bold move, Mike, because I think that Ethan might be thinking about pushing all the king side pawns forward. So not only you have to use the pawns to shelter your king, sometimes you can use them aggressively to get to the opponent's king. And this is precisely what Guo is doing.
Yep, and over on the right side of the screen, we see Ashwath. He, by the way, the bearer of an IM norm. 9 years old is when he earned his first IM norm. This game is being played between a pair of two 10-year-olds. Ashwath has it as his stated goal to become the world's youngest grandmaster. He's got about 2.5 years left to accomplish that goal. But right now, his goal is to somehow take advantage of these double pawns on the B file. I kind of feel like, yeah, he wanted his knight to be on B5, and Bodhana just snaps that knight off the board, which helps prevent its invasion. But she does have some very weak dark squares. I'm not exactly sure how to capitalize on them just yet, though. So I don't know, Arturs, do you think that White's going to be able to use those bishops and open up the position?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. And it seems that here Ashwath is definitely pressing a bit. So the two bishops against the 2 knights. I'm also, by the way, seeing that there's a lot of action happening in the other game, where Ethan Guo is playing against Supratit Banerjee, and it seems that Supratit had to give up a piece because Ethan's bold pawn pushes at the king side resulted in Supratit that he has to give up the piece to shelter the king, and yeah, the swings are quite wild here.
Yeah, and it's really not going to be great news for Supratit if he does not at least come back and make a draw. However, the computer is now saying that the weaknesses around the white king and the fact that he gobbled some pawns for his piece means he's not doing so bad. But going down 2-0 would be tough, very tough to make a comeback. Although we've seen it before. Remember, there was a World Cup final a couple of years ago where I think that a friend of mine, Grandmaster, who was up 2 games, I will not mention his name because he's such a nice guy, wasn't able to finish off the World Cup. But anyway, the goal, of course, is not to go down 2 games. So if you're black here, do you go ahead and take on g4 on the left side of your screen? Or that loses the d6 pawn, though. Maybe you don't. I think you maybe hold on that idea. They did do
maybe
it,
let's go full screen to this game because there were so many wild swing in this position. And here at the moment, White has an extra piece, so Queen f3 just solidified the position. And I feel I have to go back a couple of moves here. This g4 and h4, as you can see, the blue arrows show that Black had to find d5, the only move in this position. Mike, this move is simply unreal. It's very, very difficult to figure it out because White wants to play h5, and of course, Supratit is a human being. He played knight e7, he's not a robot, and he had an idea to give up the piece, but to go for a counterattack. But here in this position, knight x on g4 White was not the best move. He had to play apparently the very strong move rook b2 to dominate the white queen on d1 with a very unclear game. Unfortunately, knight x on g4 is such an obvious move, and yet a mistake, and Black's position starts to deteriorate.
And to correct my own blunder, I believe the reason that White played Queen f3 and did not take on d6 is because Black could have played a move like bishop to e5 and shut out that very important defensive bishop from the game. So very smart of White to not take that kind of meaningless d6 pawn and focus on the defense of the king. So I like that idea by Ethan. These players are showing some defensive moxie, but we've caught up here to the live position. In fact, Ashwath has opened up a big lead in his game. So let's go to the 2 board, and the swings are pretty incredible here. Supratit holding his own down a piece, but Ashwath looking to strike back. He's got the Bodhana's king on the run. The bishops are gaining some life. And wow, that king could get mated if he's not careful on f6.
And the d pawn is probably running forward very quickly, and this is exactly what Ashwath is doing. And Bodhana's knight on a7 is disconnected from the game, but there comes Bodhana. She's fighting back. There's a trade on c1, and knight is ready to stop the d pawn going forward. Actually, who is playing here for the win? Because a couple of moves ago, Mike, we saw that White's position was so much better here. Now, if I was White, I would be getting really nervous because the pawn on d6, it feels it's very vulnerable. It might be just lost.
Yeah, and Black can set up a blockade on d7 whenever she feels like it. So he's going to jettison the pawn and go after those weak b pawns. They've been weak for quite some time. I think that was a smart decision, but probably when Ashwath was winning, there was some line where the pawn could have gotten itself to d7, but that didn't happen. He's still probably better because e5 and b7 are targets, whereas the black rook is the defensive rook, and White doesn't even have to win the b pawn. White could push the b and a pawns down the board to make the first pass pawn of the game. So he not only needs to win in the match, but he's also the one that has the better practical chances in this position.
Yeah, so speaking about, these games are very, very tight at the moment, and the situation is changing all the time, but it appears that Supratit is still pressing, and he's trying to find the right moment, the game on the left. He's trying to find the right moment to sacrifice the exchange on d3, and that's why Ethan is stopping him to do that, and he's keeping the rook to avoid the sacrifice. And on the other game, Ashwath is making some progress, Mike, because his queenside pawns are slowly moving forward. The evaluation board starts to favor. Oh, there was a blunder?
Well, no, the bishop's traded, but that actually results in essentially a win for Supratit because he no longer had to win the opposite colored bishop endgame. So a trade of bishops wins the endgame because the king is so active.
Wow, that was so wild. It was so wild, really. And we have the only remaining game, which is Ashwath against Bodhana. The a pawn for White is gone, and now it's a material balance on the board. But do you think it's going to be a draw? Like, it was a pretty wild game, or who is still playing this for the win? Is it maybe Bodhana with the black color?
I no longer know on the board, but I know as a personality trait, yes, Bodhana is always playing for the win. I don't think I ever see her bail out and go for a draw. So I'm going to say she is playing for a win. I realize that prudence would suggest that a draw is not the worst result. But I do believe she is going for a win. Now, on the left side of the screen, this is the one opening I can speak to. I do know the C3 Sicilian. These opposite colored pawn, the isolated queen pawn positions are definitely ones that I get into quite a lot. So we'll see how that game progresses here. But going back to the right, it looks like Bodhana is the first to get her pawn to the other side. The rook is very easily going to be able to stop the H-pawn. And guess what? Bodhana, just like yesterday, has won everything we've put in front of her.
Yeah, it's again the end game technique, Mike. I mean, this has been her one of the strongest suits since yesterday. I mean, probably since a longer time, but I just noticed that yesterday that she's really good at these end games. She studied them very hard. And anyway, the game still continues. The match continues with game number 3. And what do we see here?
Yeah, so over on the right side of the screen, we have, I didn't exactly see the opening, but it could have been another, I don't know, was it a knight F3 system? Are we selling more chessable courses for you? But her situation is much different. Although I don't think she's the kind of player that would ever play for a draw. She needs only a draw in her third or fourth game to be able to advance. By the way, she's now 11.5 out of 12 this weekend. And by the way, what did she do before she showed up this weekend? Oh, she only picked up 100 FIDE points playing at a tournament in Graz, Austria. So pretty incredible couple weeks of chess here for Bodhana. That's after she put the smackdown on Gotham Chess in London as well. So she's beating every single person that we put in front of her. But on the left side of the screen, a lot of progress by Supratit. He's removed the blockade of his IQP, and now the light squares are dancing. It looks very dangerous for Black. Bishop takes H2. I don't know that move.
Well, and actually, it's a mistake. I mean, we have to go full screen on this because there's so much action happening in the last couple of moves. We just have to break it down a bit. The speed is incredible by both players, and we're going to go back to the move 14 right now. So this is some sort of a typical IQP position. White has the knight on e5. Black is trying to block the d pawn by putting knight on d5. And at this moment, Black played knight e7, tried to execute exactly this idea here. A very, very common thing in this position is boom, knight takes on f7, a classical idea in this position. Queen takes on e6. Black had to figure out that rook takes on c4 is the only move. Instead, Ethan saw a counterattack with bishop takes on h2 and queen h5, which unfortunately, at least according to an engine, does not work because Supratit can defend with queen h3 and he will be left with a pretty big advantage.
Yeah, a little panicky there by Ethan. And if Suprateet's able to pick this one up, he will leapfrog. He will go from being 1-0 down to 2-1 ahead. And things are looking great in this position. The bishops look much stronger than the knights. The knights are just sitting there holding on for dear life. White also dominates the e-file. So it is looking great for Supratit. And, it's very early to call it, but we've never had an all-English final. I don't think we've ever had a final between two players from the same country. So, England, I know you're not watching the hockey gold medal game, but you might have your own gold medal game coming up. But again, we're a long way from home. Even if Supratit converts, Ethan will have one more chance at white to try to equalize the match. And there we see the four players totally locked in. We've got hands on the mouth. We've got Supratit covering up his overhead lighting. I'm going to need to break out my stress balls, Archers, while you do some analysis, okay?
In the meantime, while you're doing that, I just noticed that Bodhana might just blundered in an exchange. And now you see there was this very smart attack by Ashwath attacking the white rook, the diagram, the game on the right. And as you can see, the rook on c3 for white is gone. So that's why here Bodhana is trying to figure out what to do. Maybe the best course of action is try to set up some sort of a fortress. And for Ashwath, perhaps this game, this exchange is exactly the kind of break he was looking for because he desperately needs to score a victory here.
Yeah, queen a6, I like this sort of, defensive move because if the bishop on f5 moves off the rook on c8, bishop takes d5 would have been a tactic that Bodhana would have spotted in about 1 second. So he moved his queen back to a6 to solidify c6 and c8. Now he's offering to trade the queens. Not a bad idea. We call that old man chess, although, Ashwath is 10 years old. That's just a smart boy chess. Okay, so she's remaneuvering her bishop. c6 is still the tender spot. Now, the rook has to give way because if it went to c7, the other dark-squared bishop would have come in the game and attacked the rook. So he's giving up control of c6 to go after b3.
Yeah, but still, White has some tricks here. Now, this is what Bodhana is exactly trying to do. She's now targeting the black rooks. Also, the pawn on c6 is vulnerable. Let's maybe go a bit full screen and see what's happening here because Bodhana's in trouble, but she is confidently leading in the match. So for Ashwath, that's the chance. You have rook b8. I really like this idea. He wants to take on b3, give a check on b1, because normally when you have a big material advantage, like here, black enjoys an extra exchange. What do you need to do? You need to simplify the position. Rook takes on b3, and now rook b1. I think, Mike, this is a very strong move, pinning the bishop on f1, the king on g1, and it feels that Ashwath is going to score the victory here.
Yeah, she was in a catch-22 situation. She didn't want to trade off her last rook and let black's extra rook go dancing around the board. But this was the penalty for not trading. She had to allow the invasion of the first rank. Bishop to d3 tactics are coming. So that's the reason that trades are threats when you're ahead. And I want to welcome International Master Greg Shahadi to the chat. Greg's been a big supporter of youth camps and youth events over the years, and he is surprised at how good Bodhana is. Welcome. You're getting your Bodhana education today. But this match is not over because she's defending a pretty terrible position. And if Ashwath makes this win, he will play into Monday morning Singapore time. We will play past midnight his time, and we'll play a fourth game. So he's got to win this, though. A draw does him no good at all.
Yeah, in the meantime, the other game is also in a severe time scramble where Supratit is playing against Ethan, and both players are down to the last 10 seconds. It's getting very, very wild here. Maybe let's go to that game and see how realistic are Supratit's chances to win this, because he was cruising to the victory some time ago. Finally, he managed to trade off one pair of pieces here, but black is definitely getting some counterplay. Rook f7, very nice intermezzo check.
It should be noted that of all of the players remaining in the ChessKid Youth Championships, Ethan has the most experience on Chess.com Blitz. He's played more than 6,500 games. So if anybody can navigate the time scramble, be used to it, it's him. But Supratit gets the best. It looks like it was a resignation. I see time left on Ethan's clock, but Supratit goes from 1 point down to 1 point ahead. He's up 2-1 in his match as it goes to the fourth game, and Ashwath needs to win this position to go to a fourth game. You would think the rook would just dominate, but so far, Bodhana just keeps hanging around, as Malkovich would say.
Yeah, eventually I think he should be able to figure it out, but I think the last element of the critical plan is missing. You need to activate the king, and this is something sometimes the kids, they tend to forget in a time scramble. There you go. He finally remembers. This is where the training kicks in. He solidifies the bishop on e4. The king is going to join the game because essentially it's a piece. It's not something you have to always defend at all costs. You have to bring the king to the action. But Bodhana is looking for some counterplay, Mike. Watch out for bishop b4, bishop c5 idea.
Exactly. By using the light squared bishop to guard the a-pawn, the dark squared bishop can jump in the game. She was debating, though, is it worth pitching the d-pawn to get the bishop in the game? She decides no. This was a great idea by Ashwath. Make that dark squared bishop go back to passivity because you can't let it get in the game. And it is a 2-result game for Ashwath. It's either win or go home. And now the rook, and interestingly, is invaded on the king side. The bishop is going to get itself to c5. And I would say all 3 results are possible, but Ashwath doesn't care about one of those results.
Yeah, but this is not so clear. And of course, the engine says that everything is super obvious here, but I would say that black still has some practical problems. That's a nice shot. Bishop a7, bishop a6, or just rook a3. Wow.
Yeah, I think you're right. You should have sacked on a6 first because bishops famously can't guard each other and put the rook on the a file. And now it's opposite colored bishops, but the pawns are connected for the moment.
No, do the take. Oh, what
yeah.
a big mistake. I think this was a fortress. She shouldn't have done that.
She kept the pawns connected. She should not have connected the pawns. By the way, I actually played Bodhana in an opposite colored bishop endgame in London. So Bodhana, I was supposed to help you in your training, but let's see how it's not over yet, because if Ashwath mistakenly puts those pawns on light squares, a blockade not likely to be set up, but it could be. Not over in opposite colored bishop endgames for sure.
This was such a tricky moment because technically Bodhana was doing everything as she's supposed to. When you are the weaker side, you are down the material, you have to trade off the pawns. But at that moment, this was simply the wrong idea. And as soon as the game is going to finish, maybe I'm going to show you very quickly here. I think that Ashwath is going to figure this out. What? No, really? What just happened?
What? Did he forget to guard the promotion square before promoting? I looked away because I thought this game was over. Wait a minute, I'm going to have to look back. That? Yeah, I think we need to go back. I think you need to show us what happened there because I had given up Bodhana and I thought round 4 was starting, but it looks like, I don't know if he pre-moved. Yeah, he just forgot to guard D1.
Wow. Oh my goodness. It's such an obviously easily winning position. Just play kings to the winning, but yeah, I don't know what happened here. Mouse slip or something. And as promised, I wanted to show you this moment here. Mike, where was this? Bishop a6, yeah, this moment here after g5. I have a feeling this might be even a draw because if black plays g4 and h5, then you can block these pawns. So this is why I'm saying that this sometimes is such a tricky moment because when you are the weaker side, you want to trade the pawns. But here for Bodhana, this was just the wrong moment. But ultimately, yeah, luck was on her side. What an unfortunate moment for Ashwath.
Yeah, that was certainly the chess technical explanation, but the human moment has passed, and I want to praise Ashwath for his fighting spirit, his willingness to play at all hours. I met him in person at the World Championship in 2024. He's such an awesome kid. He's only 10 years old, so we will see him again because he's eligible to play in this event 2 more times. So, it's under 13, so you do the math on that one. That's his favorite subject in school. So 2 more times we're going to get to see him, but the Bodhana train rolls on. And you know what? I mentioned this earlier in the broadcast. She always plays to checkmate. For those of you out there in the chat wondering why play all the way to checkmate, well, first of all, she's the youngest ever woman to beat a grandmaster. She was worse in that over the board game, and she came back to win. But even in a blitz game, when you have no pieces on the board, you can never win by resigning. Okay. So obviously it took a lot of luck, but she is a deserving finalist after her unbelievable performance yesterday. But we've got 1 game left. We wish Ashwath the best. And in this game is, again, win or go home for Ethan. And so far, he is winning.
Yeah, he is winning. And now this queen c1, Mike, I slightly do not like it. I have a feeling that he should be pushing for the king's attack here. We missed the opening phase just because this craziness was happening in the time scramble between Bodhana and Ashwath. But here at least White has a fantastic position. Extra pawn exposed, black king. And it looks like Ethan might just do it. The knight is now heading away from the king's attack. I think what he wants to do is put the knight on b3, knight on c5, solidify the position, and then just see what happens.
And in my last Olympic reference for the day, I will say that Ethan is trying to do what USA did. USA just won the gold in hockey, and Ethan is trying to become our gold medalist here. He has to beat Supratit. He has to then beat him again in the tiebreak, and then he runs into the freight train known as the Bodhana Express. So he has an uphill battle, but all he's concerned with right now is converting this position where his knight has some great outposts, but all of the black pieces are in prime positions. This is not an easy conversion at all.
No, not at all. Yeah, because black definitely has some tricks here prepared at the queen side. This queen on c4, Mike, is quite difficult to get rid of. Meaning b3 would be played by queen c3, queen a2. Okay. I think at some point white has to secure the king at the king side, play something like maybe g4, king g2, and then go for the king side attack. And when you are in a time scramble, I believe the simplest way for you to succeed is to go for a direct attack. Okay. Takes. Rook a2 probably is going to happen here.
Yeah, this is a weird bind you have to work your way out of. C3 is just so desperately weak. And of course, black didn't need to be asked twice. I wonder if there's some moment where you just ditch c3 and play for e6, but instead, Ethan plays a little more classically, just keeping his pawn chain intact. Now, if the queens leave the board, you are in heaven as white. The king can activate, c6 and d5 are targets. You never have to worry about your pawns again. So I look at a queen trade here as my only goal. Even if I play queen e3 and double my pawns, I would be super happy to have that pawn structure as white. Got to guard c3 somehow. Queen e3 coming up, almost positive.
Yeah, that was a bit strange moment here why queen f4 was played by Ethan, but okay, when you're in a time scramble, it's difficult to make the right choices. g4, so Supratit is holding on. Queen f6, can you take on e6? I'm not really sure. This bishop on e6 is not really doing anything. It's a gigantic pawn, and that's why Ethan says king g2, and there comes bishop takes on g4. But Mike, I don't think this is a perpetual, is it?
I don't think so, but it doesn't even, I don't know. It's close. Let's see. How do you squeeze out? I guess you get out by playing your king to h2. Yeah, by the way, Supratit only has less than 5 seconds left. Ethan is now dipped down to 5 seconds. It's all going to come down to the nerves. Remember, white doesn't do any good with a perpetual. He finds a way to trade queens, and the extra knight should play. But wait, that's not go anywhere. We have seen weirder things happen this weekend. So here comes the queen.
Yeah, but I'm afraid to jinx it again because I literally said it in Bodhana's match against Ashwath. That's it. The game is getting to the match is getting to the fourth game, but then this unbelievable thing happened. But here it feels that Ethan should do it, and he wins.
Ethan wins on demand. So we have overtime. Let me explain to you the overtime procedures. There we see the two kids. We're probably going to inform them of the procedures. Although, you know what? I think Ethan should be well advised from yesterday because Ethan has actually gone down this road before. Actually, I believe it was Ashwath that did. Anyway, they're going to play 2 games of 3+1. And if they're still tied, they will play an Armageddon bidding match. So 2 games of 3+1. If one player gets to 1.5 out of 2, no need for Armageddon. But if we're tied 1-1, we will then go to Armageddon. And the player that played white in the opening segment gets black in the opening segment here. Don't worry about that so much. They're each going to get 1 crack at white. And it does look like Ethan's going to get white. And here we go. Wow. Without much break at all. We are off and running.
G6, I love that. This is the Tiger or the modern version. Very, very popular between kids and many club level players. It gives you a lot of sharp ideas at the queen side. Knight f6, I slightly do not like this move because I think that white typically wants to play bishop h6. But okay, this is still the opening theory here. Do not be mistaken by the evaluation Bardia viewers because it tends to give white a pretty large advantage. But black is setting up this hippo-like position where his position is very easy to play out. And I'm pretty sure, Mike, that he has played this countless times on Chess.com.
Yeah, I've even played this opening as black many times. Very flexible. You can get your knight to c4 and go for the attack on the b file. You can play for c5. Your king hangs out in the middle, and you're right, archers. The computer overvalues the control of the center. Just got a text from my friend Tiger Halart Person. He is not playing Go today. He's just switched to watch this game. After all, it is his namesake. By the way, he tends to blog when an important game has happened in his own opening. So we're going to be looking for that. I believe it's called Bag of Cats is his blog. But anyway, no more Swedish grandmasters. Today we have the future grandmasters. And you can see the evaluation bar is already switched. The computer has said, hey, the center is not that big of a deal. The pawns are getting locked up and Supratit getting back to equality.
So let's go back a couple of moves and let me explain what makes this position so challenging for white, especially in accelerated attack control games. So I'm going to go back to move 12 here, a3, knight b6. So according to Stockfish here, which is the strongest chess engine, white has a large advantage. But the thing is, there is no immediate follow-up, meaning you just have to play chess and make the positional choices. Angel likes bishop d3, rook e1, just calmly develop pieces and see what happens. But when you're playing a blitz game, you want to react, and this is exactly what Ethan did. You want to push forward, you want to play e5. This gives away the d5 square, and that's exactly what Supratit did. A couple of moves later here, black completely controls all the critical squares in the center.
I feel like one of the reasons I love this opening is black is you frustrate white, because everything you're taught in your classical chess training is black shouldn't be able to do this. I have this massive center that's not under a lot of duress, but yet the minute you push the wrong pawn or push too soon, then black simply takes over the squares. And in fact, the black king, never having castled, might actually be the safer king. White is using this technique here where white is matching pawn for pawn on the queen side. I was just going to say, white is going to close the pawn structure no matter what. And on demand, they play c4 because they're kids. They have strong health insurance and they have no risk at all, no fear of risk.
Mike, I mean, this thing that you said, this is exactly the reason why I'm playing myself to Dutch defense, because it feels like it's a highly provocative choice. And the opponent is literally saying, wait a second, you can't do this to me, right? You can't play like this, and I'm going to punish you immediately. And that's why also the modern or the Tiger variation feels exactly like that. It's a proactive continuation. And for accelerated time control games, it's the perfect choice. All right, now the game is moving ahead. And what do we have here? Both players have positioned the kings on the opposite sides of the board. This means whoever is going to start a direct attack probably is going to be faster.
Yeah, I don't see white getting any breakthroughs on the king side. White's one saving grace is that it's hard to get rid of this control of the b file. The b file is on lockdown. You can see the archers has mentioned that you could just start stacking pawns, but then you'd have to move your rooks over to take advantage of those open files. And right now, the white rooks are pretty much pinned down. We see the blue arrow there, knight b6, an interference move, stopping the rooks from guarding each other, cutting communication, but was not found. Instead, we had rook on the king side to c8.
Yeah, that's such a difficult move, Mike, because the idea was to trap the rook on b7, and again, it's appearing here, but it's very difficult to think about it because the knight on c4 is just standing fantastically, and if I'm looking at this position from the black's perspective, he found it, but what I was saying is that you want to find ways to improve your pieces. And by the way, the position is not winning for black at all because white just gave up a very minimal material advantage.
Yeah, and it's tough to break down that passed pawn on c5, although for the first time since white played the very provocative c4, there is a piece entering the white camp. This is the first time that black has had a piece cross the halfway point on the chessboard, and white does have to be careful because the queen can sneak into all kinds of squares. And although Supratit probably not thinking it, even a perpetual check here would not be the worst result in a two-game mini-match as black. But the queen has an invasion on d2 now. Let's see if he will find it or if he'll just content himself with trading queens or something. I don't think he'll just leave the queen there because if the queens trade, I think the pawn on c4 looks very loose. So he's not going to leave the queen on c4. He's either going to take or he's going to invade.
Yeah, and I don't really share the optimism of the engine that says that the black is so much better here because in the material advantage, it means that black is essentially up half a pawn. That's usually the language I'm using with my students. Exchange for a pawn, it's only half a pawn. It's not really a full pawn. And also white is having this strong pawn on c5. So that's why in white's best interest is to trade queens. And that's what Eden is doing. At the same time for Supratit, it's not very clear what he's supposed to do with the queen. Okay, he plays queen e1, targets the pawn on h4. But if white plays bishop f2, then what? You need to make sure you're not blundering the queen e1 as well. So it's not really so obvious that black has such a large advantage.
I almost blundered myself when the white queen was on b7. I thought the rook f8 was overworked, but there were some in-between moves in case if knight takes f7. There was a rook b8 idea, so I almost blundered. Luckily, I am way too old to be playing in this and way too slow tactically. These kids are much better than me at tactics. Again, Ethan, the player of 6,500 blitz games on Chess.com. He has been down this road before. He plays a4, which I don't know, kind of seems not terribly illogical, not exactly a ringing endorsement, but it does kind of trap the white king in there. I'm surprised the computer doesn't like this move much.
I think computer likes rook b8, try to trade off 2 rooks for the queen, which again is a bit illogical. Again, here, this is exactly the best move for black, but Supratit is not ready for that. And as you can see here, white is going for the queen trade. Supratit, of course, immediately rejects. And after rook b8, his position suddenly becomes so much stronger here. So I think it's something like queen c1 here, take on b2 a couple of times, activate the king. Wow, what a move, rook b3.
Yeah, when you have the extra rook, you just need one open file. It took forever. Remember, the white rooks were crushing that b file for a while. But now that the black rooks have found a home, and we have a little exchange sacrifice. Okay, let's see I'm sorry, not an exchange sacrifice, a rook trade. That was an old man senior moment I just had right there. Okay, he's going to try to get his rook back to the b file by putting his queen back on a7. Okay, here comes the blockade, though.
What a fantastic defense by Ethan. So this bishop e1, bishop b4, he realized that he's in trouble. Now I think he could play something like king b2, king c3, bring more defenses, or knight e1, knight c2. Everything is holding together. I don't like this knight b1. That was not good.
Yeah, bishop a5, that bishop, which was doing nothing on g7 for so long, is going to be the piece that breaks down the fortress. And now the rook is much better than the knight, but be careful about the c-pawn. There's a lot of variations. We have to watch out for it.
Yeah, the c-pawn probably is going to be gone. Knight b5, watch out. This is going to be a race. Who is going to be faster? It seems that it's black. Very precise rook c4, cutting off the king on a3. Then black wants to play king d7, king c8, king b7, king b6, and then win the game. No, I mean, here Supratit should be able to do it, and he just resigned.
He did. Okay, that means that Supratit, is up 3-2. And Ethan has already won on demand once. He's got to win on demand again, except this time he's got to do it as black. Supratit wins the opening game of this little mini tiebreak. One final game, a 3+1. It's win or go home for Ethan. And if you win, you force an Armageddon bidding match.
What kind of opening is this? It's Sicilian Alapin, but I'm wondering, was this an actually mouse slip? Because I don't think I have ever seen the e5 move. I'm going to go back to the very beginning. So here, after e4, c5, c3, there is a move e6. But is there also a move e5, to be honest? I never have seen it here from the black's perspective, really. Because it weakens so many squares. Could be something. I'm not really following the modern trends here, but now black's position is starting to look really shaky. Look at this. Couple of moves later, d4, bishop takes on h6, bishop takes on d7. Ethan is immediately in trouble here.
Yeah, talk about busting and opening. I've never seen e5 either. Just got a text from Eduardo Rosenthalis, and he says, no, not to be recommended. That's a joke. He's our modern expert on the c3 Sicilian. But yeah, I don't like it either. And white has punished this move order quite succinctly. And remember, Supratit only needs a draw, and he's got even better than a draw. So if you're Ethan, you got to go crazy. And maybe there's time for you to watch my chess school course, What to Do When You're Losing. Although I'm not even sure I have advice in this position for Ethan. Keep material on the board, throw some pawns at the white king and see what happens. I don't know. Knight e6 is coming, though. It looks really bad for black.
That's very, very bad news. Also, queen f3 is here. What has galore of many interesting ideas. And to be honest, Mike, it looks like we're heading for an all-English final because Bodhana is already waiting in the final and Supratit is very, very close to get there. A very unfortunate opening by Ethan. He's been playing fantastic chess today, but yeah, at this critical moment, I suspect this was simply a mouse slip. I don't know. I've never seen the c5. Maybe it's a thing, because... When was this? It was a couple of months ago. Maybe I played against, maybe a year ago already. I was playing against Peter Swidler, one of the online super tournaments. I think it was Chessable Masters, one of those tournaments. And he invented basically a new opening, c4, e5, g4. And I thought, okay, that's a super GM thing. And then after the game, he just confessed it was a mouse slip, really. Yeah. So, I mean, these things happen.
Yeah, it is online chess, so it's possible. It's also possible, I can't remember if it was Supratit that played the c3 Sicilian earlier in the match, if it was Supratit as white, but maybe he just didn't like his d5 move. that he played against Supratit earlier in the match and didn't have anything else to play. You know, one person that's going to quite enjoy the fact that more games are played is Bodhana, because she's probably sitting at home with a cup of tea reviewing Supratit's games just in case he repeats the same openings. Because, you know, she didn't go into today knowing exactly what Supratit would do. So she's getting a little bit of an extra scouting luxury. Supratit has no such luxury. He's had no extra time. He's been fighting for his life in this match. And now, remember, he only needs a draw. And that black king is so exposed. But as a chess player, you feel like it's your obligation to win this position and not just look for a perpetual.
Yeah, for Ethan, the only hope for him to stay alive is somehow drag this to the time scramble, get the queens off the board, and rook c7, that's a move that he definitely did not want to see. The rook on the 7th rank cuts away so many critical squares. The king on e8 starts to feel really shaky. And how do you get the queens away? I mean, I don't know, queen d3 something, but why doesn't he even have to accept it? And why can just walk away? And of course, Ethan perfectly understands it. Normally, perhaps in other circumstances, he would just resign, just forget this terrible game. But unfortunately for him, there is no turning back, because that's it. This is the final game. He has to win this.
Yeah, you doubled rooks, so black could at least play d3 and give a little tickle to f2, but that's about it. If your best move is king d8, you're not going for much. Okay, he does play d3, so at least if we can drive the queen away, f2 is weak.
There comes the counterplay. There comes the counterplay. Suddenly after d3, I'm seeing some hope for Ethan, because this pawn on d3 is well protected by the knight on e5. You could play f4 because the king on g1 is pinned. You could walk away because the pawn on f2 will be lost. And black is about to play bishop d7 and rook c8. And I think here Supratit has to be a bit careful, try to figure out. That's why he was taking some time, try to understand what kind of setup he has to choose.
What about knight g4 here? Can black just forget any defense of his king and just go nuts on f2?
That makes perfect sense, Mike. I really like it. I really do. To be honest, I'm a bit clueless why queen h4 was Supratit's choice. Does he want to play queen h6, queen g7, sacrifice the pawn on f2?
Or rook h8.
d2. No, d2 I do not like. I feel you have to keep the pawn on d3 for some scare or something. But here, clearly, Ethan's idea is to play knight d3, target the pawn on f2. And look at this. Supratit, he's so careful. He's so careful. No funny business here.
Yeah, I think he's going to answer knight d3 or knight g4 with rook h8. And it looks super scary, but you can kind of lose f2. And because black's rooks are not connected, play that way. Okay, but anyway, he just collected the d pawn. That certainly is a much safer way to play. I thought black should have gone nuts, though, and attacked f2 with his knight when he had the chance. Now I don't, there's so much protectors of f2. And if you don't break through an f2 as black, then where do you break through? You can't invade c1. So white is just actually playing a little bit more of a slow attack, but I think it's working for white.
I don't think, this is so super obvious how white's going to win this, because the players are down to the last 25 seconds. Of course, I see that white has a couple of extra pawns, the black king is weak, but this knight on e5, Mike, it worries me. I'm seeing all kinds of ideas, back rank checks, the knight on g4, the pawn on 2 is a bit loose. So here, Supratit still needs to show his A game, and I really love this choice, Mike. Start to simplify the position, get some pieces off the board. I love the choice as well. Queen e8, queen b6, simplify, and just rely on pure technique.
And he finally got f4 in. Once he got f4 in, the knight had to move and the pawns become mobile. This reminds me of that famous game, Kramnik's Fiddler from Dortmund, which John Nunn wrote about, where the entire game in the Grunfeld was based on Kramnik getting the pawn to f4 and breaking down the defense. Once the pawn got to f4, now it feels like Supratit's position is able to progress and the pawns are going to become mobile. But as you said, they're both down to the final seconds. Supratit does have about a 10-second time advantage, but more importantly, he's got a pawn armada coming down the board.
And of course, Ethan did everything he could. And at some point, I have a feeling he was this close already from this absolute nightmare of a position. Engine doesn't really appreciate it, but I think that Ethan was doing a very, very good job overall. And now the game is over, and that's it.
We're going to have an all-England final. There we see Supratit on the right. He's got eyes wide open. I'm not even sure if he knows that he's advanced, but Supratit, you do get a little bit of a breather, and as do we. Luckily, you're going to need to think a little bit more than me. We do have an all-England final. By the way, Supratit has played Bodhana once, OTB. We'll let you know what happened in that game after the break. But let's take a look at the bracket, because we do want to see the finals. We want to see those two players advance. It always looks good when your name keeps advancing. For those of you out there who ever do a March Madness bracket in the USA, it's great to see when your name keeps advancing or your favorite team keeps on advancing down the road. But we're going to have a lot of English flags on the screen. We're going to have a lot of happy people across the pond. And it's fitting because, you know, they were such nice hosts to me 2 weeks ago at the SCC finals. I'm happy for you, England. I really am. It's not just because my country is celebrating our 250-year anniversary from you guys. No, we love you. Okay, so we're gonna get that bracket on the screen. But I do want to say an unbelievable fighting chess of Ethan and Ashwath. But there we see Supratit and Bodhana, an FM versus a WIM. They know each other well in real life. They're going to know each other a lot better after this final. It is going to be the best of 6 games. But as promised, we are going to go to a break. And as we go to the break, I want to encourage you to check out the new Friends and Family Plan. For years, we never offered big discounts, and then suddenly we offered our biggest discount ever, because if you get together with some of your friends and cousins with your bundled purchase, you can unlock 6 diamond memberships, almost like $1,000 in some countries. That's up to 70% off the standard price. You can now share the perks like unlimited game review and puzzles with your entire network of friends and family. Prices are going to vary depending on your country, so go visit go.chess.com/family or use the command !family for more information. Okay, quick break. Archers and I are going to refill our analytical juices when we come back. The finals of the under 13 division of the 2026 ChessKid Youth Championships. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back first. Well, it's time. Fun Master Mike is here for the worldwide premiere of Sour Chess. And my opponent today is going to be Inya. Inya, how are you?
I'm good.
You ready to eat some sour stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you like sour stuff?
No, I don't.
When you capture a piece, you get to make your opponent eat something sour. We have a whole range, and we're going to get to that. All right, are you ready, Inya?
Yeah.
All right, well, good luck. All right, let's get some Sour Chess on. We're going to save the Japanese umabashi for the victor. Inya, where are we going first? Okay, we're gonna go for the toxic waste. All right, so toxic waste, Fun Master Mike is gonna dig in. It could be like a watermelon type color. Let's see. Okay, I think you have to get past the first part. It's definitely getting worse. I think we're gonna continue the game with this in my mouth. It'll take a while. Okay, here we go. Guess what? What? You're not done yet, my little lady. This could be worse because, okay, that smell, if it's soft, I'm not sure if it's soft, but if it is, you can like bite like a half of it or a quarter of it. Is it soft? Okay, it is soft. Let's see how this goes. Okay, her lips are blue and pickles aren't even blue. Yeah, okay, I don't know who your dentist is, but I think he's gonna stay in business after this. Be funny if I couldn't get the jar open, right? This looks terrible. Your favorite one. You do not have to eat the whole thing, but you have to take a bite that shows me that you've chewed some. Umabashi. I didn't know this word existed until we started planning this video.
This looks really bad.
Just pinch off. I have no idea what it looks like. It was a plum, okay? It looked like a real piece of fruit. Yeah, it's hard to show. We'll show the camera. It's gelatinous and it's probably terrible. All right, let's see what we got. This is the conclusion. Is it terrible?
It's terrible, yeah.
Is it worse than the pickle?
Yeah.
Really? I have to say, thank you, Inya. You're a good sport. You are part of history. This is the first ever game of Sour Chess.
ChessKid is fun. Chess is great for the brain, but it's also fun to play. And ChessKid makes it easy to have fun. Whether your child is a total beginner or a prodigy, they can hop on and find a well-matched opponent from around the world at any time. ChessKid is the safe, parent-approved way for your child to play chess online. ChessKid is educational. To kids, it feels just like playing, but chess is a great way to learn patience, strategy, and critical thinking. ChessKid features a comprehensive training program that guides kids to level up on their way to mastery. There are more than 50,000 chess puzzles and a whole library of entertaining videos that teach strategies, tactics, openings, and endgames specifically for kids. ChessKid is easy. Whether you're a parent helping your child, a coach managing dozens of kids, or a school of hundreds. Signing up is free and easy, so what are you waiting for?
Well, it's all come down to this. A half dozen games to decide who is the grand champion of the 2026 ChessKid Youth Championship. We have an all-England final. I'm Funmaster Mike, and I'm joined by Grandmaster Artur's Nixons. We're going to channel our remaining energy. And I guess the question of the day is, how are you going to take down Bodhana? She has both the good moves and the good luck on her side. Can Supratit do it? And if so, how?
The only real way is the Reti opening. I do not see any other opportunities that Supratit can do, and he did play some Reti before, so I suppose we're going to see. I think that it's going to be a very close match, because after watching the action for the second day already in a row and what we saw in the semi-final matches, I think it's a well-deserved final match, don't you think? Because Bodhana definitely, with her amazing score yesterday and today, also 2.5 against a half a point, and Supratit then leading the charge against Ethan. That's a dream finale.
Yeah, and this is kind of the renaissance of English chess. David Howell, this is what you built, okay? It took an extra generation, but here are the two of the biggest stars of England. And by the way, I did want to hint at that game they played at the 2024 London Chess Classic, or maybe it was called the London Chess Masters, but shout out to Malcolm Payne for always running that great event in December. They played, Supratit had white, and it was a Caro-Kann. Supratit got the best of Bodhana, but that was 2 years ago. And in 2 years in kids' terms, might as well be a decade. And this is the Naroditsky opening, 95.
Yeah, I wanted to say, that's the Danya's formation. Okay. And immediately responds by Bodhana. She's like, I know this. What are you trying to do here? I've studied this.
I think this might have transposed to the Goring Gambit, but so many synergies in the chess world. Of course, we just gave away the Naroditsky Cup in London, and maybe a nice little shout out. I think yesterday Bodhana played the London system. So Danya, your legacy lives on in this opening. I actually have the article queued up on Chess.com to learn about this opening, and I didn't get that deep in it. But Arturs, we need the audience to understand, what does White get in compensation for the pawn? Because Black is not behind in development.
Yeah, he is not, but White has this beautiful knight on d5, and here White can immediately try to recapture the pawn on e5, and exactly this is what's happening here. There's going to be some tricks, and I think it's going to just fizzle out to something very peaceful-ish. So there you go. The players are showing they're really well prepared. Rook d1. I think you can actually take the pawn on e5 immediately, and let me just show you here on the screen. Rook d1 is obviously a very, very tempting move, but I think that here, instead of rook d1, let me just try to play it like this. Knight takes on e5. The idea is that after knight takes on d5, bishop takes on d5, queen takes on d5, you have access to knight takes on c6. After knight takes on c6, Black probably takes on c6 with a queen takes on e7, and this is really dry. Maybe Black is pushing a bit here after queen takes on c2, but White should be eventually holding on. It was definitely worth a shot, but Bodhana apparently is really well prepared.
And by the way, if you're thinking that this is something that is just a joke or kids play, actually Nakamura played it against Magnus Carlsen at Clutch Chess in St. Louis. only a few weeks after, maybe actually a couple days after Danya's passing. So, it can be played at the highest levels. I believe Nakamura made a draw against Magnus. But yeah, we are deep into the line. I don't think we're following that game against two 2800s. I don't know. It's an extra pawn where I come from, but I'm old school.
Yeah. So here, White already probably needs to figure out a way how to limit the damage. That's the thing. I mean, how do you feel when it's the right moment? Try to limit the damage, or when you still keep pushing and make a face that you have some sort of a compensation? So if I'm trying to attack, maybe I'm thinking about some knight g5 and knight e4 ideas. But black is about to solidify the position with h6. And if Bodhana feels threatened at some point, she can just play something like bishop g4, take on f3, and play knight e4. Her position is very safe. And for Supratit, Mike, I think he probably wants to take on c6 at some point, but no, he doesn't want to do that.
Yeah, he's dropped back to e4. I guess the one thing that he's got going for him is that the b and the c pawns, if he can get them mobile, he's going to start really harassing those black minor pieces, which are going to run out of squares. And in fact, right on cue, he plays queen c2. He's not really looking at h7. I think he's looking at playing pawn c5 and expanding on the queen side. That would certainly be my guess as to his intentions.
Yeah, so White's strength is these strong bishops here on e4 and e3. And for Bodhana, I think she has a bit some practical problems, meaning it's not a bit easy to consolidate the position because the queen on f6 stands a bit awkwardly. You could have played queen e7, there's going to be c5, the bishop is trapped. And also you couldn't really improve the position that the king said in any way. And then really allow this move h3. It limits black's opportunities to play bishop g4. So Bodhana is making all the right moves, but essentially I think that Supratit is going to play in a way that for black, it's quite difficult to find the next move. Literally, all of Bodhana's pieces are tied, and yet she's doing a wonderful job.
Quick question, archers. Let's go back just a couple moves where White played h3. White had the opportunity to play bishop takes c6, bishop takes a7, but I suppose the fear was pawn c5, locking in the bishop. Let's just take a look at that. Instead of h3, if she went pawn grabbing with bishop c6, bishop a7, she's getting a wayward pawn. And would c5 lock in her bishop? That was the fear. And in fact, that does seem to be the problem. So if you're wondering about the tactical opportunity, she saw a little bit further. She saw n+1. So we'll go back to the live position. And she has studied Bobby Fischer's game from game 1 in 1972. And she knows all about bishops getting trapped on the side of the
Actually, I wanted even to mention the game of Jan Nepomniachtchi against Magnus Carlsen, one of the World Championship matches where Nepo, with the white color, whichever game it was, he played bishop takes on b7 and Magnus trapped the bishop with c6. Yeah, but obviously it's a very, very common theme, even in the World Championship matches. So we already have two examples here. But if we go back to the current position, Supratit definitely has some compensation. There you go, Mike. Bishop takes on c6 happens, but I don't think it's to take the pawn on a7. I think he wants to win the pawn on e5.
Well, I'll say this. You're probably right because you're the grandmaster. But if you take on a7 now and pawn c5 happens, you're at least ready to play b4. So there's at least a little more opportunity to rescue the bishop. But yeah, I agree with you. Why not take the pawn that has zero chance of your piece getting trapped? Also a much more important pawn. So all of black's pawns here are getting wrecked. Black is going to have an extra pawn, but also the worst pawns in the history of chess. They're all going to be isolated in pretty much a symmetrical way.
What just happened here? Because Bodhana didn't immediately respond with g takes on f6. Was this something she forgot? Because now her pawn structure at the king side is completely ruined. And if we look at the structure as a whole, black does enjoy the extra pawn. Black does have the bishop pair, but it's the pawns, Mike. I mean, they're really, really weak. The c pawns here, the f pawns here at a king side, and the knight potentially could dominate those bishops. So there goes Supratit, puts the knight on c4 and try to solidify the position.
Yeah, and if the knight, well, I thought it was going to go to c4. She's going to try to collect the pawn right away, but you never want to trade the light squared bishop for the knight if you're black, because white will have the much more favorable bishop in the endgame. Even though you're technically up a pawn, I think it's an easier position for white to play. But she's just going to go for the c pawn, at least one of the c pawns, and that knight is just dancing all around the chessboard. I would say the minute she collects one pawn, we're going to say that she's better. And I think she's got opportunities all over the board. I don't even know which pawn to aim at. She's spoiled for choice. I'm sorry, he's spoiled for choice in this position. I got the colors backward for a second. And that's going to be Supratit's plan. Just pick off a pawn and enjoy the endgame.
I just got only one thing to say, Mike. Endgame alert, because once again, we are in the endgame phase, and this is where Bodhana has scored so many victories. And looking at the evaluation bar, it keeps increasing for Black all the time, and she constantly and gradually improves the position. The position still remains level, but Bodhana so far in the tournament has been really good in these in the closing parts of the game.
Yeah, she sacks the pawn to activate the bishop. Now remember, she's had one opposite colored bishop endgame today.
Oh!
Well, something major happened. Now there's going to be a windmill action. A lot of pawns were lost. Supratit takes control. I was going to say she had one opposite color bishop endgame today, that she did not handle the pawn structure the best, but the rooks are on the board, and that's the big problem, is the white rook is crawling all over the position. The white rook could even travel to h8 for a checkmate.
That was very tricky. Very tricky moment here. And Supratit is now collecting all the pawns. And he is definitely now going to push for the win here. He has 3 extra pawns. Despite the fact that it's obstacle of bishops, here white is having excellent winning chances. Still, nothing is over yet because Bodhana is attempting to build up a fortress. Wait a second, watch out for the king on h6. This is such a scary place for the white king.
Yeah, the king either has, okay, he didn't play rook h7. The king needed the h7 square more than the rook did. So the rook toggles back. Yeah, white could get himself mated if he's not careful. And you know Bodhana, she's got a lot of rabbits and a lot of hats. We already saw that when she made a draw down a bishop and a pawn earlier today.
And I think this is also going to be the very first loss for Bodhana in both 2 days, because she should have lost the round 3 game against Ashwath, but she managed to somehow miraculously save it. And there you go. So Supratit takes down the first game.
Yep, I think that game ended with queen e5 mate. It all happened so quickly. Supratit goes back to his perts, but you're right. Bodhana was sitting on 12.5 out of 13 this weekend. That was the very first loss that she suffered, and we're back to the Tiger Modern. This is what I mentioned, though, archers. She had all that time to sit and watch Supratit play. If I was her, I would have looked up what to do against the Tiger Modern, because it happens. Now, she's castled to the king side, whereas I believe in the other Tiger Modern game, the king may have gone the other way. I can't exactly remember.
Yeah, this knight g4 is a very common move in the structure, because Bodhana definitely does not want to give up the dogs with bishop, and this is exactly what she does. Knight c6. So it feels really, Mike, that Supratit has a very deep understanding about their rising positions, and he was one of the players who played many games on Chess.com. From all the players here, obviously from the finalists, he had the highest rating on Chess.com, which is 2780 at age 12. By the way, we also should remind you, dear viewers, that tomorrow there's a very special day for Supratit.
That's right. He turns 12 tomorrow, and this would be a great birthday present to himself. That does mean he's actually eligible to play in this event again next year. So if he's no matter who's able to win, we will have a chance for a defending champion to come back next year. Our defending champion currently is International Master Aaron Mendez, but he got too old. Aaron, you did wrong. You got too old. He's going to play in the under 16 division coming up in 2 weeks. And I've had the pleasure of both of these kids joining me in Trafalgar Square at Chess Fest, the annual event that happens in mid-July. So I've gotten to know both of them really well, and they're both lovely kids to work with. But back to the chess, Bodhana. This is a 6-game match, remember, so not quite as critical that you equalize right away, but you definitely don't want to go down 2-0, and her king is under a lot of duress. That pawn's coming to f4 if she's not careful.
Here, Supratit definitely is feeling the momentum, and he's caught a wave of good results, good games. So far, this is a very powerful game by him. So all of the black's pieces are going for the king side attack. Rook takes to the 5. Of course, black doesn't want to trade the queens. I think rook f8, again, is a very easy move. So for Bodhana here, it's very critical. Somehow hold on at the king side and do not blunder the mate. Just be very careful. Play moves like king g2, f4, bring the second rook to the king side, and survive the storm.
Yep, absolutely. Now, I think she does an incredible job of keeping chances alive in worse positions. Remember that one game where she was worse in the semifinals, and she just kept making life difficult on her opponent? I think that's one of her great skills. In fact, if we were to remove the 1 second increment, if we were to go full Chess.com, I would say she'd be a massive favorite against anybody in this field just due to her speed. I think the 1 second helps the entire field against her. I know that 1 second would have been nice if I'd gotten to play with a 1 second increment when I played her in London a few weeks ago. But she's totally locked in. She's got that ChessKid t-shirt. And if I'm white here, I'm looking to, I don't know, move my king to G2, help solidify my pawn structure, try to play F4 or something.
Look at this. This is where Supratit is pausing. I really like it. This is a great trait for a young talent because he feels this is a critical moment. This is where your training kicks in. And probably he also understands I have to invest a bit more time. So he spent like 30 or 40 seconds even for a blitz game, which sometimes is quite unusual, especially for kids level. But now, Rook E5, he's ready to cash in.
The computer didn't even want to support the pawn structure with king G2. The computer just wanted to play F4 right away. I thought that was a little bit too loosening, but instead F4 never came, and the black pieces are continuing their inexorable march toward the white king. F3 is now in lockdown, and one of the advantages of playing F4 is you don't let black pieces invade to the F3 square. That could end up being important. Right on cue, Rook F3, lots of pieces coming in, possible sacrifices on G3, possible invasions on the H file. That is why F4...
That's a mate. This is an easy level 1 puzzle, basically. Rook takes on G3, queen takes on G3. Wait, there's Rook H5. It's not a mate, but it's such an obvious sacrifice here. And of course, Supratit is going to spend a bit time trying to figure it out. Queen H3, Rook G5. I think that's the cleanest. Yep, he's going to do it.
Doesn't even allow the queen to sacrifice for the rook on H5. That's it. That's clinical right there. And now the queen's going to swing
queen
to
H4.
G3.
Oh, G3. Oh, okay, that's even better.
Oh, H4. Okay. You're taking the long way. And again, geometry in chess, go check out Maurice Ashley's Chessable course, but not right now. Mate in 2 is mate in 2. And Supratit is he's up 2-0. He's been able to do what nobody has been able to do all weekend, which is hand Bodhana a 0. But we're back to a Caro. By the way, this is exactly their 2024 London Masters game. It was a Caro with this same pawn structure. Let's see what improvement Bodhana has after that game they played.
Yeah, so it's Caro-Kann. Once again, it's back on the menu. And Bodhana is just trying to get the game here. She needs to come back. Typically in the Caro-Kann positions, black wants to play something like F5, G6. No, here, Bodhana goes for a different plan. Is it knight F4 at some point? No, just to play Rook D8. Black's position is very safe. And I don't think that Supratit really minds to do any trades because he's comfortably leading in the match. So any draw allows him to get closer to the desired result. And speaking about the birthdays, not only it is Supratit's big day tomorrow, but also Bodhana herself is celebrating her birthday in just 2 weeks. So yeah, it's quite amazing.
Yep. They all grow up sometime, don't they? But you kind of said it. I mean, it's the most boring position of the finals, and boring is good. Boring is a language Supratit should speak when he's up 2 games, and he just has no weaknesses. And this is just, I mean, maybe black can play like a B4 pawn sack or something. That's pretty much black's big idea in this position, but this is exactly the kind of position you want. He will play bishop takes knight in a heartbeat. He will play that knight versus bishop position. That would be lovely to do. I think he's just going to take right away. I would take. It simplifies. You get the knight. Now, I realize the black bishop gets a little active. It's a little different now with the bishop on E6, but I'm an old man. I would just take the knight. I know you may not agree, but let me hear from you.
Actually, here, Fischer's bishop takes on h7, I think it actually works. Because, okay, rook a6 was played. Let me just put it on the analysis screen. Instead of this, sometimes this move can be a legal move because the point is black cannot trap the bishop with g6. There's going to be knight x on e6, rook e6, and you drop the pawn on g6. But it's such an easy move to miss. And instead, Supratit decided to go for rook a6 and target the pawn on c6. Bodhana is on defensive.
Yeah, she absolutely is. She just has not a fun position to play as black. Now, a draw is not the worst result in the world, but when you're groveling for a draw and you're -2 in the match, that's a really tough position to be in. But she's staying pretty, pretty constant. She doesn't look too flustered on camera there or anything. Both players have been down this road before, both being ahead and behind in a match. And, Bodhana just got done playing Magnus. She's not going to be as nervous as the game against Magnus. I was in the room. I saw it. I know she's not as nervous as she was in that match. Well, we have B4. Finally, she's made some progress. She's given Supratit something to worry about. It says double question mark, but don't always believe the computer. That's the whole theme of my Chessable course. You have to create counterplay sometimes.
I think that B4 idea, Mike, was definitely the right idea, but the moment was not really well chosen because, as you can see, Supratit plays B3. Now the pawn on C4 is well defended, and suddenly all of Black's pieces are looking really awkward. The knight on B6 is really bad. The pawn on C6 is weak. Think about moves like Rook A6, and I really do not see how Black can hold this position together. So Bodhana had the correct idea, but the timing, unfortunately for her, could have been better.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things, Archers, where you're looking at playing this move for a long time and you finally have a free moment where nothing's being attacked, so you play it. But that still does not necessarily equal the right moment, as I think you very clearly showed. White has taken over the position, and just some trades. E6 is, I think, mortally weak. I don't see a way to guard it. F5, you could just snap the pawn on F5. So finally a breakthrough. I thought White was going to go for knight versus bishop, but you know what? I can't argue with bishop versus knight. This is looking great for White.
Yeah. So I'm not really sure I would have done this if I was from the White's perspective, but hey, a pawn is a pawn after all, and the Bodhana's chances of remain alive. Lovely move, bishop h5. This threatens with rook e8 checkmate on the board. d5, Supratit presses while it's hot. The knight on b6 was pinned, and I think this is very, very close to a winning position, if already not a technical matter. Bodhana cannot afford to trade the rooks here.
Yeah. She's only pausing because if she trades and sets up a dark square blockade, that's what's going on in her mind. I'm actually surprised that she did it. I would have put the rook on a8 and just hoped for the best. So she's going to try to bring her king in. Okay, you're going to use the knight as the initial blockading piece. But I think there's too much volatility and there's pawns on both sides of the board. So the goal here is to create two weaknesses. You already have one. The c6 pawn needs attention. But I believe that White will eventually be able to either go after b4 or go after the kingside pawns and create an official second weakness.
Yeah, this is, I think, exactly what White is doing. Now, bishop f3. Okay, here comes the king. Maybe Bodhana's idea is to set up some kind of a fortress. Watch out. Wait. Knight c5. How is White making a progress? Because this pawn on b3 suddenly is quite a big weakness. Did she just do the unimaginable and just save this position? Because suddenly I do not see how White is planning to make any progress whatsoever. The king is tied to the defensive pawn on b3, and the bishop on d5 is really pretty. The pawn on c6, Mike, is fantastic, but ultimately you need to make a progress. How do you do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see this coming. I thought the knight was going to go back to c7 and the white king would have gotten to d4 and the pawn would have gotten to c5. I might have to eat my Chess.com scarf because she has done what we said she probably shouldn't do, which is trade rooks. And by the way, I do have fortresses as one of the things that you should go for. I just didn't think this fortress was possible, but she showed us that this dark squares are very, very hard to invade. And I don't really see where White makes progress. The bishop's going to go back to d1, maybe. Maybe you have to give away the c6 pawn and then activate your king. But I don't think you want to allow the b3 pawn to get captured. And now everything is locked up. A draw feels like a win for who? I mean, Bodhana should have probably lost this game, but a draw also gets Supratit close to the finish line. So it's not the worst thing to have happen to him in the world, but certainly he was almost about to close out this match.
Yeah, it looks like Supratit is not going to risk it. The only idea I was able to think of is to put the bishop on d1, protect the pawn on b3, and then march with a king. But f4, f5 doesn't really help you to achieve this. So that's why I think that he definitely is going to play the draw, and draw is agreed. Quite a save by Bodhana, who stays in the match. Otherwise, having 0 against 3 would have been pretty much the end of the match.
Yeah, that's too much to come back from. I mean, I guess we've seen it once or twice in Speed Chess Championship matches or something, but it's pretty hard to come back from. And remember, in Speed Chess Championship matches, there's a clock ticking down, which adds a different kind of element. Here, there's no match clock. We're just playing the best of 6 games. However, this is the first game where the match could possibly end, because if Supratit were to win as black, he would get to the magical score of 3.5. We're not rooting for it. We're simply mentioning that it's a possibility. Bodhana needs to start making some wins. Even a draw here would be very tough to come back down 1-3.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just loving the spirit of Supratit, who played Queen E8 to carry out this typical trick of E5, E4. Let me go back a couple of moves here before the players are getting out of the opening phase. Here, typically the trick here, Black doesn't play C5. It's a very, very common trap. Black plays Rook E8 with the idea to play E5, attack the bishop, and then play E4, deliver a fork. So what happened here is that Supratit played C5 first instead of this move. He played c5 here and played the other move, queen e8. A bit different idea to carry out e5, e4, and Bodhana just blissed out immediately bishop h2. You're not going to do this to me, at least not today.
And you know what? I play this way against a London as black with queen e8, and I can tell you it's always my d6, c7 pawns that become weak, and that bishop on h2 it's the I think the dream of a London system player. I can't enter their heads because I would never be caught playing the London system, but this bishop on h2 going after d6 for pretty much the entirety of this game is going to be really tough for Super T to deal with. In fact, we can already see bishop takes is about to trap the rook, and that bishop's about to become the hero of all London players. Shout out to Amon Hambleton, who just sold 10 Chessable courses because of Bodhana's play in this game.
Yeah. So his course, by the way, came out last week, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. E5, beautiful move by Bodhana. Protecting the bishop on d6. This also enables knight d4 jump, so she enjoys an extra pawn. Also on top of that, g4 at the right moment could be a thing. Not immediately, of course, but think about moves like queen e4, g4. But I think that the simpler move, knight e4, control all the critical dark squares here. Maybe this is exactly the kind of break that Bodhana was looking for. She lost the first two games. She was looking really shaky in game number 3. But this miraculous draw maybe has given her the belief that she can make a comeback in this match.
Yeah. And remember, this is why she is one of the most fighting players. You know, you might be like, well, playing to checkmate doesn't show fighting spirit. That just shows that, you don't know how to wrap up a game. But if you start backward, if you think backward and think, I'm going to play all the way to checkmate, then it's also reasonable to think that you're going to become a super fighting player 10 moves before that when you're in a worse position. It kind of has a carryover effect. And you know what? It works for her. And we're seeing it work in this event. Remember, she was down a bishop and a pawn for nothing. She had a bare king on the board, and she was able to make a draw in that game. And if you weren't here for the semifinals, I'm not talking about bishop and wrong color rook pawn. Okay. She just legitimately made a draw down to bishop and pawn for nothing. But here she's in total domination of the position. A quick check of the clocks. She's way ahead on the clock, 2 minutes, 20 seconds to only 50 seconds. So she's winning on every facet of this game.
Yeah, because Supratit was pausing for quite a while, and this is something, Mike, I have noticed in his playing style, especially in the ChessKid Championships yesterday and today. He feels those moments really well, and this is not very characteristic trait for younger players, because typically kids, they like to play very quickly. They spot an idea, they just play it out very quickly. But Supratit senses this moments that either he feels there's something there. This is what he did in one of the previous games against Bodhana, and right now also he paused at the moment where he felt that his position is getting really dangerous. He didn't really figure it out, but like this is essentially where I can sense it's very good training.
Yep. I agree with you. And I wonder if there's a little bit of carryover effect. He's a little bit hesitant because he had that winning position against Bodhana, wasn't able to convert. For me, that makes me a little bit more apprehensive in the future games because you want to be just that little bit of extra exactness. But this is a little bit different, of course, because he's defending a really, really bad position. He's got the hand over the head again there. So blocking out all of those halogen lights above him or whatever he's got going on in his room there. Bodhana still sitting in her secret lab chair, looking like a pro. Looks like Supratit might be representing Herman Miller. I'm trying to get you guys some contracts, okay? Let's see if any of these companies call. But back to chess. Now his pawn structure has been shattered, and it's not even opposite colored bishops. Wait, rook takes.
Whoa, rook d6 doesn't work because of queen c8. You have to be very careful. Now rook d6 is a thing. Bodhana has to be tactically alert, but I really like what she's doing here. She's going the full mode, simplify the position. Like textbook response, what you have to do in the position when you are having an extra material. Simplify trade because there's a common rule. You cannot blunder what you just traded. And for a blitz game, sometimes that's all you need.
Now, I would have played queen c6 there to force the queens off the board, especially because if black doesn't take you and you take black on d5, I think the d pawn would have been weak. But A lot of kids play just different chess than I do. Even when they're up a pawn, they still play the maximalist move. They're the stockfish generation. And instead of trading queens, she's lined up on the 7th rank, and she's probably looking for tricks like bishop f8. Now, you don't want to do it right away because the queens will trade or you'll lose e5. But the bishop f8 idea is lurking.
Yeah, this queen of 7, I'm not really sure I like that. I mean, allowing bishop takes on e5, there was a line. I was not sure if Bodhana calculated very precisely, but she still has 1 minute on the clock. There you go. They're going exactly for this line. f4, queen g7. And are you sure this is such an obviously winning endgame? I don't really like this because now we are in the realm of rook endgame. And check this out. b5, immediately automatic pawn sacrifice by Supratit. And now for Bodhana, this could be quite tricky to win.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to get passed pawns on both sides of the board, so it should technically be winning. But if I'm Supratit, I'm happy rolling my dice in the rook endgame compared to what I had on offer 10 or 15 moves ago. So let's see here. She plays g5, okay? She's got to get her pawn to f5 because you have to create a second weakness in this position. Right now, f5 is on lockdown. Now, if she could ever ditch her b pawn to win the g pawn, she would sign up for that in a second. That's what she's trying for, but where does the king hide?
There you go. That's what I told you. That's what I told you. This was such a tricky endgame, and it's just a draw. Very, very big miss by Bodhana. Now, here, Supratit managed to do exactly the same thing that Bodhana did in the previous game, and I feel that Bodhana should have used a bit more time. She had, like, I don't know, 50 seconds on the clock, but, you know, you really want to play it out. You played very quickly. But what to do? The match continues.
Yep, it does. She stole half point in game 3. Supratit steals it right back in game 4. And as we would say in golf, he is now dormy. He just has to win one of the last 2 holes, games. In fact, he doesn't even have to win. He just has to tie. He goes back to the Caro-Kann, a reprisal of their one OTB game that I could find in my database. And somehow, Bodhana has to win with this pawn structure. I'm not sure I would have gone back to the Caro, but I'm also not also sure what other quivers, arrows she has in her quiver. If I can mangle that analogy a little bit longer.
yeah, for a must-win situation, this is a tough opening. But unfortunately, sometimes that's the fate of Caro-Kann. That's why, especially the professional players, they tend to choose more than one opening in critical phases. You tend to play something more sharper. But I mean, we have to remember these are still kids. They're only age 10 and 11 respectively. So they're playing one opening, and definitely at some point later, also Bodhana and also, of course, Supratit, they will include more openings in their face. But yeah, I would have wanted actually to see something sharper for Black in such a critical phase.
Well, I'm not sure how much energy she has. She looked almost a little bit tired to me in that photo, but also she's just so stoic. It's hard to always read her emotions. She's becoming a pro before our eyes. In fact, remember, she has represented the English women's national team. I think she was like 8 or 9 years old when she played in Budapest. So she's played on the world's biggest stage. She played against Magnus 2 weeks ago. This should be old hat for her. But right now she's facing a checkmate idea with rook takes e6, but she decides to trade queens, getting rid of the attack on the king. And we've been down this road before. We basically had this endgame in game 3 where Supratit was pushing. He only was able to get a draw. Now, he would take a complete repeat of that. Now, the black pieces are a little more active, Archers, than Bodhana had in game 3. So it's a little bit of an improvement as opposed to what happened 20 minutes ago.
And White is just going to simplify as much as he can, because he still has one more game to go in case things fail in this position. So Bodhana plays king of 8. I don't think it's the idea to trade rooks on e8, because then I do not really see how Black can even theoretically try to win the same game. So the point of king of 8 is guard e7 square. And if I was Bodhana, I would try to organize some kind of a pawn play, something like f5, g6, take space at the king side, play b5, exactly, b5, a5, b4, and use the rook on a8 to generate targets. And I think that Bodhana has figured this out. So she's going to keep this rook on a8 to generate the necessary counterplay she needs at the queen side.
Yeah, and if she gets a4, a3 in, then c3 would be weak, which means her knight might want to be attacking some of those squares on the queen side. And right on cue, she does not bring the knight to the king side. All of her play is on the queen side. She is currently forking the rook and the pawn on b2. Her a pawn is mobile. She could even push her c or a b pawn. So at least there's life in this position. There is some options. And as Archers is showing, perhaps even a knight c1 invasion. The knight would get all the way to the other side of the board. Okay, big moment for her here. Which pawn to push? A lot of pawns you could push on the queen side. All of them are probably worthy of at least a glancing look.
Yeah, bishop f5 looks very tempting, but unfortunately White can play bishop c2 and force more trade, so I don't think. No, Bodhana still does this. So bishop c2 is going to happen immediately, and I think that Supratit is going to be happy to get rid of this knight on d3. If I was him, I would just slam it on d3 and see what happens. No, he first plays knight e3. Yeah, the trade is going nowhere.
Yeah, again, I think these kids live in a different world, but you're right. You can always delay the trade for whenever you need to. He actually, I don't know if you noticed, he leaned back in his chair, which I think is the sign of being a little more comfortable after playing the move bishop to c2. And I would feel more comfortable too. I would rather have one set of minor pieces dancing around the chessboard rather than two. Okay, so he's going to
he picks a king f1, king e2. Look at this, Mike. I mean, suddenly the knight on d3 is in trouble, and Bodhana already has to pick up the only move. Rook e8, king e2, knight x on b2, rook takes on b2, b takes on c3, and she finds it.
That's unbelievable to find that with such limited time.
It's quite a crazy line. Let me just put it on the board while they're trying to figure it out. So the point is king e2, knight x on b2, rook takes on b2, b takes on c3. The rook cannot walk away because there's going to be bishop takes on c2, and the knight on e3 is pinned by the rook on e8. So this is the idea. The question is, can here White figure it out?
Yeah, the funny thing is White might want to fall into the tactic, because at the end of all that, White can just play rook b6 and collect all the c-pawns, and actually maybe it's a giant simplification, but I can also understand White not wanting to go for a crazy line when there's 1 minute on the clock. Supratit has about 15 seconds behind his opponent. Bodhana has about a minute. Supratit's got about 40 seconds. But it's all going to come down to the nerves here. Supratit only needs a draw to win our first prize of $1,500 and be the ChessKid Youth Champion for the Under 13 division of 2026.
c5 was a necessary move to be found, and Bodhana just found it. She paused at the right moment. She is not going to repeat the same mistake she did in the previous game. Now, suddenly, this is again 3-result game here because Black is getting very active at the queen side, but Supratit is being super careful. He plays rook d2. He's not going to risk anything. Knight e5 check, but you cannot trade the rooks. The pawn on b2 will be gone. Can you play b3? Yes, you can, but now Black is going to have a counterplay with a4.
Yeah, interestingly, even if White loses a pawn on the queen side, if White gets rid of all the pawns on the queen side, that should be a rather elementary draw on the king side. So that's kind of Bodhana's problem, is that even if she plays a4 and wins a pawn, if she loses her b pawn, she's only going to be playing on one side of the board, and a draw is as good as a loss for her. She is dormy here. She needs 2 wins in the final 2 games. So how to create counterplay and how not to simplify, I'm glad Bodhana has to answer that question and not myself.
Knight c5, rook d2, so Supratit doesn't really need to show anything. For him, draw is just good enough. Knight d6, he is happy to trade the knights. And now for Bodhana, it's getting close to impossible to win this because she has the passive rook on a7. All of this happened in mere seconds, but of course the game still continues. You can, of course, still flag this.
We are moments away from Supratit winning our All-England final on center court of the ChessKid Youth Championship. She's gotten this move a5, a4 in, but again, now that all the pawns have left, of course, she's got a 2-pawn deficit, but even if she wins both queenside pawns, seems impossible to win this. Only Magnus could win rook and 3 versus rook and 3. She has to win rook and 3 versus rook and 5, but a reminder, Ali Reza won rook and 1 versus rook and 3 against Hikaru in London. Who would have thought that was possible? Maybe she's achieved equality, but that's still not enough.
It's a draw, but unfortunately for Bodhana, it doesn't really give you anything. Yeah, so rook h1, king h2, rook c2, it is a draw, and maybe this is exactly how the match is going to finish. A fitting end for such a thrilling finale. Bodhana did everything she could have, but ultimately it is Supratit who wins the tournament, becomes the ChessKid champion under 13 in the year 2026.
That's right. Bodhana had a moral victory at the end, but Supratit had the championship victory, winning 3.5 out of the 5 games, doing what nobody was able to do all weekend, which is to beat Bodhana, the world's youngest ever WIM. It was a fantastic final. These are 2 superstars of chess and both great people in real life. So Bodhana finishes second. She's still eligible to play in this event for a couple more years. And the good news is we get to talk to Supratit. So we're not going to let him go anywhere because there's our bracket, by the way. We can see Supratit doesn't have to play a 6th game. That's, he had to play a little bit of extra chess there in the semifinals, but no extra chess in the finals. He is our champion, and we're going to talk to Supratit and have a great interview with him after this short break. So please don't go anywhere. We're going to get Supratit mic'd up. We're going to make sure that he's ready to answer the tough questions and really just celebrate a day before his birthday. All right. So before we go to break, I want to remind you about the strongest ever female player, Judith Polgar, because she's currently playing you. You know why? Because you're part of the world. That's right. It's 1 versus 8 billion as the strongest woman in history and one of the most influential players the game has ever seen plays the entire world in chess. Now, remember that Judith is playing the opening alongside the debut of her documentary, Queen of Chess. That's right. She went to the Sundance Film Festival, and it's now a top 10 series or movie on Netflix right now. If you'd like to join the battle with tens of thousands of players against one of chess's all-time greats, use the command !play Judith in the chat. All right, Supratit, when we come back, chat, please put your best questions for our winner in Twitch, and we will maybe grab one and we'll make you famous. But Supratit is the most famous. Don't go anywhere. When we come back from break, a talk with our champion.
ChessKid is fun. Chess is great for the brain, but it's also fun to play. And ChessKid makes it easy to have fun. Whether your child is a total beginner or a prodigy, they can hop on and find a well-matched opponent from around the world at any time. ChessKid is the safe, parent-approved way for your child to play chess online. ChessKid is educational. To kids, it feels just like playing, but chess is a great way to learn patience, strategy, and critical thinking. ChessKid features a comprehensive training program that guides kids to level up on their way to mastery. There are more than 50,000 chess puzzles and a whole library of entertaining videos that teach strategies, tactics, openings, and endgames specifically for kids. ChessKid is easy. Whether you're a parent helping your child, a coach managing dozens of kids, or a school of hundreds. Signing up is free and easy, so what are you waiting for?
Professional chess player if I can make it, but if not, a streamer or someone who can help open an academy and help the younger generation get better.
Top 10 player at chess.
I want to become a professional chess player.
If chess doesn't work out, I would like to study finance, and I will become an investment banker.
For now, it's looking like I have a very promising career in chess, so hopefully chess.
但是首先呢，我还是希望我能先成为一名出色的棋手。我最喜欢历史，因为我比较喜欢听故事，而且历史也是现实中的一面镜子。
Math, because it has lots to do with calculation.
Maths in a school because it is somehow related to chess.
Maths, it's because it's probably my best subject, and of course some similarities can be drawn between maths and chess.
Geography, language learning, and others.
My favorite subject is math, as it's closely related to chess.
Hi, I'm Bodhana and I'm here with Judith Polgar, and I picked a game that I really liked of hers to show today.
And this game was special for several reasons, but let's move on with some of the next moves. And then I tell you more and you ask your questions. I took back. It's a pawn sacrifice for initiative. I was always very happy to give up material in order to look for activity. E5 I played, right? Knight e7.
Bishop g5.
Bishop g5. Yeah, I like this move generally because I pinned the queen. And now castle. So I do like to sacrifice pawns. At the same time, if I don't have to give up material, I might as well take it back, yeah?
Yeah.
I took this back, queen takes, knight c6. Why is this possible for black?
So we're attacking the queen, and if they take on c6, then we can take on g5.
Uh-huh. And when you saw this game of mine, what did you think around this position?
I thought white was still better because like it's just more active and developed, I felt.
Mm-hmm.
And also like we might play bishop f6 at some point.
Oh, that can be strong, yeah?
Yeah.
So I like my move. This was a very strong move, moving away my queen and b6.
Well, it's my pleasure to be joined by the young man of the hour, the champion of the under 13 section of the 2026 ChessKid Youth Championships, FIDE Master Supratit Banerjee of England. He joins us there right in the middle of the chat. Supratit, congratulations on a weekend of hard-fought chess.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, just to summarize your participation in this event, in 2024, you just missed out on qualifying in the knockout in an Armageddon game. And then in 2025, you did qualify, but you had an over-the-board event. This was your time, it feels like. What was the difference this year? What did you learn in those previous experiences in our event that allowed you to become the champion today?
Well, one was predictability in opening. As you saw in a few of my games, apart from the finals, I was consistently playing 1g3, just to throw off some of my opponents, and yeah. And then the other one was like not trying to take draws because I think I had 3 draws at the end, and other than that, I had no draws. So it was like another turn in the previous 2 years. It's been really sort of tough, and I've been playing lot of longer games in this event. So I've learned from that, and then I'm always just going to playing some dynamic stuff with all 3 results possible.
I love what you said. Yesterday's round robin, it takes a big score to win. You had those 7 wins and no draws. And today they were strategic draws that got you the championship. Arturs, what would you like to ask Supratit?
Yeah, Supratit, of course, congratulations with your win and your upcoming birthday tomorrow, because I think that, this event is like the best birthday gift you could have ever got yourself. But I wanted to ask you about the preparation you had for this tournament. How did it look like? I assume you prepared the G3 idea and then the Tiger variation, the modern defense with G6 already well before. Did you look up something else like what your opponents are playing?
So of course I looked up briefly about what my opponents were doing, and for the semi-finals and finals, I've played them before, so I knew I have quite a rough idea of like their sort of playing style. So, but then I think the challenging part was in the round robin when I didn't know the other player's style. Yeah, and for the perk and 1g3 that you were saying, so 1g3 basically came one time when I was playing some bullet online, and then I just was playing 1g3 and I won dozens of games with it. And the perk is like, okay, it's very, very similar to 1g3. So it's always very consistent. So you don't really need to think too much, at least not in the opening. You only have to really start thinking in the middle game. So it saves a lot of sort of time and energy there.
Yeah, very smart, especially with a tournament with increment. You can almost get ahead 10 seconds above the 3-minute mark with the opening. I had a couple more questions for you, but you know what? I'm going to cede my time to the honorable grandmaster from England. David Howell was in the chat watching the finals. And so I'm going to give my question away to David. David wants to know from Supratit, who are your chess heroes By the way, you don't have to mention him if you don't want to. Who are your chess heroes and what are your next goals?
So my heroes are like young players who have achieved a lot, like Gukesh, for example, and like Magnus, top players. And my next goals are like currently I'm trying to get to 2400 um and get my IM title soon, hopefully.
And
And
because it's a David Howell question, do you want to be his teammate one day on the English national team? Because after all, Bodhana is already on the women's national team. Is that one of your goals also?
yeah, that's one of my goals, but I would need to reach 2600. So currently it's more of a long-term goal, but it's definitely there.
Great. We hope you make it. Archers, what else would you like to ask our champion?
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure that Supratit, you're gonna make it because when I was your age, I was way, way worse. I'm looking at you, how you are in Bodhana playing at this age is just incredible. Maybe I'm gonna ask a question from the chat, and there's a question by HyperChess8866, which is a very blunt question. What are you going to do with the prize money?
I'm not sure. I have no idea what I'm going to do.
I had this suggestion yesterday that 25% of it go back to your parents to offset all the tournament expenses. Any chance that you'll at least take them out to dinner or something?
We'll see. We'll see.
I'm not going to put you on the spot. You earned the money. You're the super talent. It's your money to keep for sure. By the way, it was an all England final. So I know you've played Bodhana at least once in 2024 at the London Classic, but did you like the fact that you had to play a country woman from the final, or would you have preferred to play somebody from a different country?
It depends. It really depends on the players and their style. For example, Bodhana is obviously great in the end game, as I could see when going through her games yesterday. But then at the same time, I personally think I'm not that bad in the end game. So I think it really depends on the playing style. Like I don't mind really anyone who I just feel happy to play against in general.
Fantastic. Another question from the chat. Jesse Brawl Stars wants to know, what tournaments did you play in recently? But what I also kind of want to know is, where are we going to see you play next? So maybe you could answer the historical and the forward-looking question.
So recently I played in Belgium, which was like maybe 2 or 3 days ago only. And then before that I played Grandmaster Norman Sweden and the Wilton Cup. Next I'm going to play Fairgrounds Open and Menorca.
Busy schedule. Busy schedule. I would love to be a European kid where you have all those tournaments close by. Anything else for him, Archers?
Yeah, I mean, these are really great open tournaments, Super, that you're playing. I also have played, for example, in Wilton. But I would like to ask another question by a chat, and I have a feeling that Mike is not asking on purpose. I'm not really sure how he's going to comment on it. So Krishna21234 is saying, what are your birthday plans for tomorrow? And did Mike get you that holiday for tomorrow?
I don't know yet if I've got the holiday for tomorrow. Fingers crossed. But well, I think birthday plans, dinner, and yeah, I mean just in general celebrations that are usually there.
And for those of you wanting to know, want to be on the inside of this inside joke, and you did not watch the broadcast yesterday, I made a joke that I would contact Supratit's headmaster and request a day off from school. Supratit, you owe me an email address, okay? Get me that email. I will send it off to your headmaster, and I will see what I can do. But no promises. I don't know that I have that much pull in your schooling. So you should probably go to school, kids. I'm not trying to get you out of school. Okay, one final question. We'll let Krishna have the final word. What time control would you choose if you could only play one for the rest of your entire life?
Okay, that's a very difficult question, but generally I enjoy 3+2 all of the time. Always time scrambles, but there's always increment. So that's probably my favorite time control.
Excellent. If we ever play in person, I will need that increment against you. So I'm glad that you didn't say 3+0. But for now, you are the young man of the hour. Enjoy your final day as an 11-year-old. Enjoy your $1,500 US. And you are eligible to defend your title next year because you will not be too old. So we look forward to seeing you next year, if not sooner. Congratulations again, Supratit. You're a worthy champion.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, as we say goodbye to our champion, one final look there at the bracket. He did not need to play a final sixth game because he racked up a couple of wins and then made very strategic draws to ensure that he got to that magical 3.5 points. But I want to also give a shout out to Bodhana, who at one point had 12.5 points out of 13. Heartbreaking that she could not continue that run, but she's also eligible to play in this tournament for 2 more years. She is very much a part of the world stage, and we so much enjoyed spending time with her a couple weeks ago in London. And I want to thank her for everything that she is and represents because she's a great player. Any final thoughts, Arturs?
Yeah, I mean, it was an amazing 2 days, a fantastic event as usual. Mike, I mean, ChessKid's Championships is usually a fun event to follow. And I would like to say thank you to all of the participants who participated in this tournament. Some of them were maybe a bit unlucky not to make it in the knockouts, but all of them fought really well. Also, of course, all of the parents, the relatives who helped the kids that were watching probably the broadcast live and cheering for their loved ones. I hope that you are going to proceed to work on the goal, which is become one of the world's best players. And I'm wishing, of course, also to Bodhana the best of luck. And I'm very, very happy in general for the chess in England, because as David was following this event in the Twitch chat and YouTube chat, was it Twitch chat? Not really sure, but that you have bright stars growing up in England, and these are the names we have to watch out for.
Well said. All 12 of these kids had people helping them. As you said, Arturs, we had a lot of people helping us. Thank you so much to our producer, Ryan, all the people at Fair Play Game Ops, everybody behind the scenes. You made this show go great. Arturs, silky smooth commentary as always. Really enjoyed it. And we are not done, because in 2 weeks on March 7th to 8th, we have the Under 16 Championship with Grandmasters Andy Woodward, Yuj Erdemis, International Master Fausti Oro, who could actually be GM-elect by the time you see my face on this screen again. You never know. So mark your calendars for that. That'll be March 7th and 8th, where the teenagers battle it out. That's it from here. I enjoyed bringing you the 2026 ChessKid Youth Championship. On behalf of Arturs and myself, we'll see you in 2 weeks.